She built an empire. He cleaned the floors. Their forbidden love defied every rule. But when her board discovered her secret, it threatened to cost her everything, and she had to choose between power and a love that could change. The polished floors of Hayes Industries' executive suite shimmered beneath the chandeliers, but Victoria Hayes, only 28, felt a creeping unease, despite her iron grip on a tech empire. Her flawless blonde hair and tailored designer suits screamed old money, yet a persistent doubt gnawed at her razor-sharp mind. The quarterly projections were flawless, the colossal Patterson Corp merger on the cusp of completion. So why did her thoughts keep circling back to David, the reserved night supervisor? "David, have you seen the cleaning crew this morning? The man on our floor specifically," she'd asked her assistant, the questions slipping out before she could stop herself. His puzzled reply, Marcus Green, had been brushed off, but her mind replayed the hushed, late-night conversations with Marcus. His insights, shared during her solitary work hours, were unnervingly brilliant. She'd never confessed how much his quiet wisdom shaped her boldest decision. In the boardroom, a dozen grey-haired executives in impeccable suits rose as Victoria entered, their eyes sharp with expectation. Morning light poured through the windows, but a shadow clung to her thoughts. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we seal the Patterson merger," she declared, her voice betraying a faint tremor. "A multi-billion-dollar leap forward." Mr. Thompson, a steely board member, leaned in, his gaze piercing. "Victoria, this has been your obsession for months. We're ready. Why do you hesitate?" Her fingers tapped the table, a restless rhythm. Just last night, Marcus had whispered doubts about the merger, its toll on employees, its threat to the company's soul. His words had rooted themselves in her mind, impossible to shake. "I need more time to assess the cultural impact," she said abruptly. The room erupted in murmurs. Ms. Davies, the CFO, arched a brow. "Victoria, we've dissected every angle. The numbers are ironclad. What cultural concerns could possibly stall a deal this massive?" Victoria paced to the window, her reflection a mask of control. How could she admit that a facilities manager's voice carried more weight than the board's collective expertise? These were titans of industry. Yet her most lucrative moves had sparked from midnight talks with a man they'd never deem her equal. "I need to consult one more advisor," she muttered, the words sounding hollow even to her. Mr. Thompson's voice cut through like a blade. "Victoria," he warned, his tone heavy with suspicion. "This board has responsibilities. We cannot delay crucial decisions based on vague hesitations. Who exactly is this mystery advisor, whose counsel outweighs your entire executive team?" The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria knew this was a turning point. Would she ignore Marcus's wisdom, or acknowledge that true insight wasn't limited to Ivy League degrees? "His name is Marcus Green," she stated quietly. "And before you judge, I want you to hear what he has to say." A collective gasp, followed by shocked silence. Victoria had just revealed that a facilities supervisor influenced billion-dollar decisions, and she saw the disbelief etched on every face. Victoria had been raised in the opulent Hayes estate, where success was measured by net worth and powerful connections. Her father, Mr. Hayes Sr., had built his empire by associating with people just like him, wealthy, influential, and undeniably white. Her mother, Mrs. Hayes, had always reinforced, "Successful people recognize successful people. It's about lineage, elite education, and knowing your place." These echoes filled Victoria's office after the disastrous board meeting. She struggled to reconcile her upbringing with her deepening respect for Marcus's mind. Her childhood best friend, Charlotte Davis, sat opposite her, dressed in an outfit worth more than most people's rent. Charlotte, a PR executive for her family's firm, understood the delicate dance of social standing and business. "Victoria, darling, I'm genuinely worried about you," Charlotte sighed, sipping her artisanal coffee. "Mr. Thompson called my father. He claims you're making erratic choices and deferring to inappropriate advisors. What on earth is truly happening?" Victoria gazed at the sprawling city below, remembering her perspective just months ago. Back then, she'd never even considered if cleaning staff had names, let alone valuable opinions. The corporate world had taught her to swiftly categorize those who mattered and those who didn't. Custodians, security guards, maintenance workers. They were part of the building, not its human pulse. Charlotte, what if everything we were taught about success and leadership is incomplete? Victoria whispered, her voice laced with doubt. Charlotte's perfectly arched eyebrows shot up. What do you mean, Victoria? Your father surrounded himself with the sharpest minds. Harvard MBAs, Fortune 500 executives. You can't possibly question decades of proven business strategy. But what if the best minds aren't always found in the places we typically look? Victoria turned from the window. What if true wisdom comes from understanding how decisions impact real people, not just spreadsheets? Charlotte set her coffee cup down with a sharp clink. Victoria, Hayes, you sound like someone who's forgotten where she came from. Your great-grandfather built a steel fortune from nothing. Your grandfather expanded into technology. Your father created a global empire. They certainly didn't do it by consulting with janitors. The dismissive way Charlotte uttered janitors made Victoria flinch. For months, Marcus had simply been Marcus, intelligent, thoughtful, challenging her every assumption. But in her world, he was defined by his job title, not his character. Perhaps that's precisely the problem, Victoria retorted, surprised by her own courage. Perhaps generations of only speaking with people who think, look and come from our exact background have created blind spots we can't even perceive. Charlotte rose, smoothing her designer dress. Victoria, as your friend, I'm going to be blunt. You're having some kind of breakdown. Maybe it's the pressure of the company. Maybe it's being single at 28 when everyone expects you to be appropriately married. But you absolutely cannot base business decisions on conversations with the help. The phrase "the help" hit Victoria like a physical blow. It reduced Marcus to a mere servant, his worth defined solely by his service to people like her. Yet, over recent months, she'd seen him as someone whose insights consistently improved her judgment, whose questions compelled her to think beyond quarterly profits to profound, long-term impact. His name is Marcus Green, Victoria stated firmly. He holds a business degree from a community college, works 2 jobs to fund his daughter's education, and understands this company's culture better than most executives, because he truly sees how our decisions affect our employees. Charlotte's expression softened slightly, but concern lingered. Victoria, I admire your desire to be a compassionate leader, but there's a vast difference between being kind to staff and allowing them to influence major corporate decisions. Your board will never tolerate it, and frankly, neither will your father when he learns of this. The mention of her father sent a shiver down Victoria's spine. Mr. Hayes Sr. had spent 40 years cultivating relationships with powerful individuals who demanded certain standards. He'd taught her that leadership meant tough, fact-based decisions, not emotional connections with subordinates. Perhaps it's time those standards were challenged, Victoria declared, though a slight tremor ran through her voice. Charlotte gathered her purse, preparing to leave. Victoria, I love you like a sister, but you are playing with fire. The business world isn't ready for a CEO who consults with facility staff, and honestly, neither is our social circle. Think of what you're risking, your reputation, your company, your entire future. Is one person's opinion truly worth all of that? As Charlotte departed, Victoria faced a choice that would define not only her leadership, but her very character. She could retreat to the safe, predictable world of board meetings and country club chatter, or she could embrace the fact that her best decisions had come from listening to someone her world had taught her to ignore. The haunting question wasn't whether Marcus's advice was valuable, she knew it was. It was whether she possessed the courage to defend it publicly, and face the inevitable backlash for challenging decades of entrenched corporate and social norms. The Hayes Industries building hummed, but the executive floor was eerily quiet as Victoria finally lifted her gaze from her computer. She'd been poring over the Patterson merger documents for the 3rd time, trying to silence the doubts Marcus's questions had sown. The financial projections were robust, but his concerns about employee morale and cultural integration kept swirling in her thoughts. She heard the soft whir of a vacuum cleaner outside her office, recognizing Marcus was on his night shift. Over the past months, their conversations had become the unexpected highlight of her long days. What began as polite acknowledgements had blossomed into discussions that profoundly challenged her perspectives and sharpened her decision-making in ways she'd never anticipated. "Good evening, Miss Hayes." Marcus's voice drifted through her open doorway. In his mid-30s, tall with kind eyes and a gentle smile, he made even her most stressful days feel manageable. He wore his usual navy uniform, but Victoria no longer saw the clothes, she saw the man. "Marcus, please, you know you can call me Victoria when it's just us," she said, stretching to relieve tension, "and you're perfectly on time. I could truly use another perspective." He finished organizing the outer office and appeared in her doorway, maintaining the respectful distance that protocol dictated, yet with the easy familiarity their months of talks had forged. "Another day in paradise?" he asked with the gentle humor that always brought a smile to her lips. "Paradise is overrated when you're buried under spreadsheets," Victoria replied. "Marcus, I need your brutally honest opinion. This Patterson merger, should I truly be so concerned about the cultural impact?" Marcus leaned against the doorframe, his expression thoughtful. "Victoria, may I tell you what I observe as I walk through this building at night?" She nodded, urging him on. "I see individuals working late because they genuinely care about their jobs. I see family photos on desks, personal touches that make this place feel like a true home. Patterson Corp, however, is notorious for quarterly layoffs and treating its workforce like mere numbers. When cultures merge, the stronger one inevitably dominates." Victoria had read the same data in corporate reports, but hearing it from someone who interacted daily with the employees gave it an entirely different weight. "The board thinks I'm being overly cautious. They see the financial gains, and honestly, so do I. But you're wondering if there's something more vital than just financial gains." Marcus finished her thought. "Victoria, that's not weakness, that's genuine leadership, is it? Or am I just terrified of making a colossal mistake?" Victoria rose, walking to her window, the city lights twinkling below like distant stars. "Sometimes, I question if I'm even qualified to make decisions that impact thousands of lives." Marcus's reflection appeared beside hers in the glass. "Do you know what I've learned working 2 jobs while raising my daughter? Qualification isn't solely about degrees or titles, it's about caring enough to ask the profound questions, and being brave enough to act on the answer." "Tell me about your daughter," Victoria said, suddenly realizing her focus on his business acumen had overshadowed his personal life. Marcus's face lit up with paternal pride. "Chloe is 19, pre-med at Columbia. She's everything I'm not: brilliant, ambitious, determined to change the world. She dreams of being a pediatric surgeon." "Columbia is expensive," Victoria murmured, instantly regretting her condescending tone. Marcus merely smiled, unfazed. "It is. That's why I'm here at night and at a community center during the day. Every extra shift is another semester, another step toward her dream. She doesn't know how much I sacrifice, and I intend to keep it that way." A profound shift occurred in Victoria's chest, a recognition of dedication that transcended all social barriers. "She's so incredibly fortunate to have a father who believes so fiercely in her dreams, and your employees are just as fortunate to have a CEO who questions whether a profitable merger is truly the right thing to do." Marcus countered. "Most executives would sign those papers without a second thought about the human cost. But what if I'm wrong? What if my hesitation costs the company millions in lost opportunities?" Victoria's vulnerability surprised even herself. She'd never admitted such doubts to her board, not even to Charlotte. Marcus moved closer to the window, and Victoria caught the faint scent of industrial cleaner mingling with something warmer, perhaps aftershave, or just the essence of someone who built his life through sheer hard work. "Victoria, in all our conversations, have I ever led you astray?" She mentally reviewed the past months, the marketing strategy he'd questioned that would have alienated their customer base, the hiring decision he'd helped her reconsider that led to their best new programmer, the employee benefits program he'd suggested that had dramatically boosted morale. "No," she admitted, "never. But the board has no idea about our conversations, and they certainly wouldn't understand why I value your opinion so highly." Perhaps it's time they did, Marcus said quietly. Victoria turned to face him directly, and for a fleeting moment, the corporate chasm between them vanished. She saw him not as the facility supervisor, but as a trusted confidant, whose insights had subtly shaped her best decisions. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. Marcus, what you're suggesting could fundamentally alter everything for both of us. Sometimes, change is precisely what's needed, he replied, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart flutter. The question is, are you truly ready to stand by what you know is right, even if it makes others uncomfortable? Victoria realized they were standing far closer than was appropriate, drawn together by months of intellectual connection that had deepened into something profound. She saw flecks of gold in his brown eyes, sensed the quiet strength born from years of tireless work and unwavering dedication to his daughter's future. I don't know if I'm that brave, she whispered. I believe you are, Marcus murmured. I believe you are exactly that brave. The moment stretched, pregnant with possibility, burdened by decisions that could reshape their entire life. Victoria felt an undeniable pull, not just to his brilliant mind, but to Marcus himself, his quiet integrity, his unwavering moral compass, his uncanny ability to see potential where others saw only limitation. For the first time she was powerfully drawn to someone her world would never comprehend. The realization both thrilled and terrified her. Victoria arrived at the office the next morning fueled by a new fierce purpose. Marcus's words from the previous night echoed in her mind. She'd made a decision, both terrifying and utterly inevitable. She would officially invite him to consult on the Patterson Corp merger, but first, she needed to learn even more about the man whose opinions had become so indispensable to her. She found herself taking the elevator down to the lobby, something she'd never done in her 3 years as CEO. The marble and glass atrium buzzed with morning energy. Employees grabbed coffee, security guards greeted visitors, maintenance staff prepared for their day. Victoria suddenly realized she'd never truly noticed the vibrant ecosystem that kept her building running. Ms. Hayes, Marcus emerged from a supply closet, surprised to see her on the ground floor. He was dressed casually in jeans and a Columbia University sweatshirt, which she assumed belonged to Chloe. Without his uniform, he looked younger, more approachable. Victoria's pulse quickened, completely unrelated to business. I was looking for you, she said, feeling a little breathless. Do you have a few minutes before your day shift begins? Marcus glanced around the lobby, acutely aware of their public conversation. Of course. Is everything all right? Walk with me. Victoria gestured toward the small cafe area. As they moved through the lobby, she observed how other staff greeted Marcus with genuine warmth. Security guards nodded respectfully. Administrative assistants smiled, asking about his daughter. He was clearly cherished by people Victoria rarely interacted with, people whose names she was now embarrassed not to know. They settled at a small table by the window. Victoria found herself studying Marcus's face in the morning light, the fine lines around his eyes, testament to both laughter and worry, hands calloused from honest labor, a smile that made her feel like the only person in the room. Victoria, you're making me nervous. Marcus chuckled softly. You look like you're solving a complex equation. Perhaps I am, she replied. Marcus, I need to propose something utterly insane. I want you to officially consult on the Patterson Corp merger. Marcus's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. I'm sorry, what did you say? Your insights over the past months have driven my best decisions. The board questioned my hesitation about the merger, and I realized I couldn't defend my stance without revealing that my most trusted advisor is someone they've never seen as more than a part of the building's maintenance staff. Victoria, Marcus gently set down his cup, leaning forward, his voice low. I truly appreciate your confidence in me, but I'm a facility supervisor with a community college degree. Your board members have decades of experience and Ivy League credentials. What makes you think they'd take me seriously? The very same thing that made me start listening to you. Your advice has consistently been superior to theirs, Victoria declared without hesitation. You perceive things they completely miss. You grasp the human element that vanishes in their spreadsheets and projections. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Victoria recognized when he was deep in thought. Do you fully understand what you're asking? I'd be stepping into a room full of powerful executives, as a black man with a community college education, telling them their business strategies are flawed. That's not just professional suicide for me, it could be incredibly dangerous for you too. The gravity of his words hung between them. Victoria had been so fixated on his insights that she downplayed the enormous social and professional risks of elevating him. In her privileged world, merit was supposed to be enough, but she was painfully realizing that merit was often filtered through prejudices she'd never had to confront. What if we started small? Victoria suggested. What if I invited you to simply observe a board meeting? No pressure to speak, just listen, then share your thoughts with me afterward. Victoria, Marcus's voice held a tenderness that transformed her name into an endearment. Why is this so profoundly important to you? You could easily make the merger decision without me. Your instincts are sharp, and you have access to consultants who wouldn't raise a single eyebrow. Victoria stared out at the bustling street, struggling to articulate the burgeoning feeling she was still discovering. Because talking with you has made me a better leader, not merely more profitable, but truly better. You ask questions that compel me to think beyond quarterly reports to long-term impact. You remind me that every decision affects real people with real lives. And Marcus prompted gently, sensing more. Victoria met his gaze, feeling a vulnerability she'd never known in a professional setting. And because, somewhere along the way, I started looking forward to our late-night conversations more than any board meeting or social event. You challenge me, Marcus. You make me want to be worthy of the trust you place in me. The confession hung in the air, more personal than either had intended. Victoria realized she wasn't just expressing professional admiration, she was describing the genesis of something far deeper, something that transcended the boundaries their disparate worlds had created. Marcus was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching her face. Victoria, are you certain this is only about business advice? Because what you're describing sounds far more complicated. I don't know, Victoria admitted, her voice barely a whisper. All I know is that your opinions matter to me in ways I can't fully explain, and if that makes me a fool for wanting to elevate someone the world doesn't expect me to listen to, then, I suppose, I am a fool. Marcus reached across the table, his fingers briefly touching her hand, a gesture, so simple, yet so charged with meaning, that Victoria's breath caught. You are not a fool, you are incredibly brave, but bravery carries consequences, and I need you to understand what you're truly risking. What am I risking? Victoria asked, though a part of her already knew the devastating answer. Your reputation, your board's confidence, your father's approval, your entire social standing, Marcus listed quietly. And those are just the professional risks. Personally, you're risking even more. Victoria looked down at the warmth where his hand had touched hers. What if I believe you're worth that risk? The question surprised them both. Victoria hadn't meant to be so direct about her burgeoning feelings, but the words had sprung from a place of raw honesty she rarely accessed. Marcus leaned back, studying her with an expression that blended wonder with profound concern. Victoria, Hayes, what exactly are you trying to say? I'm saying that somewhere between asking for your insights on marketing strategies and debating corporate culture, I began to see you as far more than an advisor. I started seeing you as someone whose mind I deeply admire, whose character I profoundly respect, and whose company I genuinely cherish. And I'm saying that you are describing feelings that could complicate both our lives in ways neither of us is prepared for, Marcus replied, though his eyes held a warmth that contradicted his cautious words. Victoria's heart raced as she realized they had undeniably crossed an invisible line from professional collaboration to personal confession. Are you saying these feelings aren't mutual? Marcus's smile was gentle, tinged with a hint of sadness. I'm saying that mutual feelings don't magically make the complications disappear, but Victoria, they also don't make them impossible to navigate. The possibility hung between them like a fragile bridge. Neither was certain they were ready to cross it, yet both felt an irresistible pull to explore. Victoria spent the next few days in an emotional maelstrom unlike anything she'd ever known. Her conversation with Marcus had unleashed feelings that defied every lesson her privileged upbringing had instilled about appropriate relationship. She found herself distracted in board meetings, gazing blankly out her office window during crucial calls, and instinctively declining social invitations that would once have been automatic acceptances. Her assistant, David, noticed her unusual behavior, assuming she was simply overworked, and screening her calls more diligently. But Victoria knew the truth. She was falling for a man her world would never accept, and that realization terrified her more than any business decision. That evening, she sat in her luxurious penthouse apartment, surrounded by opulence that suddenly felt hollow. Central Park stretched spectacularly below, the imported furniture was museum-worthy, and the wine in her glass cost more than many people's monthly grocery. Yet, all she could think of was Marcus's gentle smile and the way he'd looked at her when she'd confessed her feelings. Her phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte, "Emergency girls' night, bringing wine and gossip, no excuses." Before Victoria could reply, she heard the familiar click of Charlotte's heels across her marble foyer. Her friend had a key and never hesitated to use it when she sensed Victoria needed an intervention. "Darling, you look utterly dreadful," Charlotte announced, sweeping into the living room in a cloud of expensive perfume. Dressed for a country club dinner, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her jewelry complementing her designer gown. "I've been hearing rumors, Victoria, about your recent behavior." Victoria set her wine glass down with more force than necessary. "What kind of rumors?" "The kind suggesting you've been making questionable decisions and consulting inappropriate advisors," Charlotte replied, settling onto the white leather sofa. "Mr. Thompson is concerned about your leadership, and frankly, so am I. Mr. Thompson has questioned my leadership since the day I inherited this company," Victoria retorted defensively. "He's never believed a woman could effectively run Hayes Industry." "This isn't about gender, Victoria, and you know it. This is about you suddenly acting as if corporate governance is optional." Charlotte's voice held the sharp edge of genuine concern. "Tell me the truth. What is truly going on? And don't give me some absurd nonsense about expanding your advisory circle."